Jerry Trimble.
Yeah, Jerry Trimble was a bad motherfucker.
Golden Boy. That's what they call Atlanta's Jerry Trimble.
He hails from Vancouver, British Columbia. Manny, the school teacher, so proud. Manny, so proud.
Welcome back to Two World Champs. We have a guest today, Russ Anber, good friend of Manny's. Manny, why don't you tell us about him?
Oh, Russ is one of the greatest boxing minds in Canada that I know of. Russ has coached 4 Olympians, and they weren't just 4 Olympians. These guys, the first gym they ever stepped into was Russ's gym, Ring 86, and they went on to represent Canada at the Olympic Games. And he's also coached 1 professional world champion, Otis Grant. Again, Otis started for the very first day of boxing at Russ's gym. And Russ has gone on to be a color commentary for CBC, TSN, you name it, he's done it. And now he's one of the top cornermen in the game, being a master wrapping hands guys, and he's an amazing cut man. But not only is that, he understands boxing, and I think he gives a lot to these boxers that go into the ring, and you know, it's just such a fine line that anything that is said can really make a change in a boxing match, and Russ is that guy. Russ is a great boxing mind. You on there, Russ?
Indeed. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sir. Yeah, indeed.
Perfect. Sorry about that.
No, not at all, man.
Tea's important, Russell.
Yeah.
I wanted to get my cup of tea. Yeah. I want to get my cup of tea.
I got one of my rival shirts on, Russ. Remember these? You made these?
That's an old one, boy. That was from years ago.
It's
Holy
classic.
smokes.
It's classic.
It is a classic. I wore my Usyk shirt that I got for the Chisora fight. So that's.
So to fill you in, so myself, well, all 4 of us were part of a youth group in Vancouver. We're mentors. It's called the East End Boys Club. And, you know, Jerry and Manny, we work with them all the time. And we're like, man, you guys got crazy stories. You guys got to start a podcast. And they're like, oh, we've heard that before. But we kind of forced them. We twisted their arm to do it. So COVID's here. Everyone's locked down. It couldn't be a better time. So we're super excited to be here and have you join us.
You know, it's ironic. It's ironic that you guys mentioned this because, you know, seeing Manny here now, I just got in the mail about a couple of weeks ago. Jamie Pagandam wrote a book. Really? And I don't know if you guys had seen it or not. It's available on Amazon. It's called From Soul to Redemption or something like that. It's the Jamie Pagandam story. Yeah. He wrote this book telling about his experience in Seoul, Korea. And there was some stuff in there that I literally had forgotten, you know, and it came back to light. And, you know, I think about Manny's performance at the Olympics, which I remember distinctly because it was the first ever fight I ever called for the CBC on television. And, you know, which started my career as an on-air broadcaster with CBC and later with TSN, and Manny's was the first fight I ever did.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's some history.
Kind of cool. Made me think about that, man. I think how long ago that was.
33 years ago, Russ, or 32 anyway.
Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Manny, do you remember what happened to Pagandam over there?
No, I do. Yeah, he knocked down a Thai guy 3 times, so the fight should have been over.
Yeah.
And then the Thai guy caught him, knocked him out.
And well,
so
he
won the fight.
He dropped him, and then they just stopped the fight for no reason. Yeah.
But then because he got stopped, he couldn't continue in the tournament.
That's right.
Because that's the rules of amateur boxing.
That's
but
right.
They gave him the decision. Well, they overturned the decision from KO to so the Thai guy couldn't continue and Jamie couldn't continue. I remember that. It's funny you bring that up, Russ.
That's crazy. Like when I thought about that, like I don't know why, but that wasn't something, I guess with everything that went on in Korea that year. It's so, you know, being the first one, so many things happened. And that was so early in the tournament. Yeah. And it kind of got lost after, you know, the Ben Johnson incident and then Lennox winning gold and Egerton silver and like, you know, the Roy Jones debacle, like all this stuff, like the Pagandam fight had totally, you know, I'd forgotten about it. And then looking back on it, like it's now when you say it, it's as clear and fresh as when it happened. And
I know.
he got robbed, like never beaten at the Olympics, yet couldn't continue. It's
and I don't know if that's ever happened like that. Like I can't think of anything.
nah, I don't know. I can't think of anything that's ever happened like that. That's crazy. But you got to feel bad for the guy, like for that to have happened to him, and all these years later, and the story not been told, because that's really something quite incredible. And I guess you'd have to think that there was so much, especially when you look back on it, all the corruption that was revealed leading up to those Olympics later in the book by Andrew Jennings, Lord of the Rings, and you can read all about that. It was all about the corruption and how Roy Jones was robbed of his medal and everything that went down with AIBA. And for all intent and purposes, Manny, as you know, the Seoul Olympics basically changed amateur boxing for the next 25 years, 30 years. Like they changed their scoring system. They changed the number of the rounds,
5 rounds,
2-minute rounds, like everything about it changed. And, as a result of that, and, Jamie's story got lost in that, and he was the victim of either maybe a corrupt referee who didn't want to stop the fight, or, human error where the guy really, and I think, and, in fairness, we all lost track of it. I don't know if you remember correctly. No. We all lost track of those knockdowns.
Yeah, because so much was going on at the moment. There was 3 rings going on at that time too, remember?
3 rings, and the first knockdown happened so early in the round, the first 8 count. It was an 8 count, right? It wasn't even a knockdown.
Right.
Happened so early in the round, and then the next 2 happened late, but people only remembered the 2. They forgot. Even the corner didn't know.
I know.
None of the fighters. Yeah,
because Taylor Gordon should have been up in the corner. Hey, stop the fight.
Sure he should have. But like I said, who knew? Everyone missed it. The judges.
Well, when you got a good cornerman, Russ, if you were in his corner, I can guarantee you would have seen it.
Well, I appreciate
gotta have a good corner.
I appreciate that.
The corner person is so important. I mean, look at Angelo Dundee, how he helped Muhammad Ali when he was fighting, what was that British guy's name when he...
Henry Cooper.
Henry Cooper, when he found the stuff in the glove, eh?
Cut the glove. Yeah, he cut the glove.
Well, he didn't cut the glove, Russ. He just looked at the cut that was on the glove.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah. Cut that was on the glove, right. So, yeah.
That's how important a cornerman really is, though, Russ.
Of course, absolutely. He did the same thing in the Liston fight when Liston comes back to the corner, when Ali comes back to the corner of the eye, right? He says, my eyes are burning, you got to stop the fight, And Angelo says, no, we're not stopping anything here. This is the there's no stop.
I know, but do you remember Muhammad Ali says, Angelo, I see 3 of them. I see 3 Sonnies. Yeah. Well, just hit the guy in the middle.
Hit the guy in the middle. That's right. Hit the guy in the middle. Yeah, that's I mean, listen, there's a lot of great moments like that, and Dundee was one of my favorites. Like, I'm never going to quantify, and he was a good friend of mine. Like, whenever I'd go to Miami, I would call him. I met him first in 1980. Yeah. First in Miami, and then here in Montreal when he was here for the Leonard Duran fight. Now, of course, I was just a kid then, right? I'm like 19 years old. He doesn't really know who I am. He doesn't pay any attention. But later on, he had come to Canada to watch the Nationals one year. And then I would stay in touch with him whenever I went to Miami. And when he came to to Toronto to do a book signing for a book he had written, I believe it was either for his book that says I Only Talk Winning or My View from the Corner. I think it was My View from the Corner. And we interviewed him on TSN, on my show that I had on TSN on In This Corner. Yeah. And after the taping of the show and everything, we took him out to dinner. And when I took him out to dinner, I started to do magic tricks for him. And I love doing magic
I read that,
tricks.
yeah.
And all he kept saying was, "Oh, Muhammad would have loved that. Oh, Muhammad would have loved that." And that was a really great compliment, for him to say that. And we had a great time, and he was a good friend of mine. I'll never consider him a great trainer as far as trainers as in the true sense of the word, like a Georgie Benton or an Eddie Futch.
Yeah.
But as a corner man, he's number one.
Sharp as it.
Wow.
Sharp as a tack.
The best guy in the corner, knew what to tell you. Yeah. The best. The best.
Wow.
My idol.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Russ, I trained with Angelo for about 6 weeks before the Olympic Games. Did you ever know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was down in Miami Beach and he was in Hollywood, Florida, because I trained a bit at the Fifth Street Gym, which he originally is famous for, but then he moved to Hollywood, Florida, and I trained with him there because he had a fighter named Elvis Yarrow. Do you remember the name?
Sure,
Elvis
of course
Yarrow?
I do. Of course.
Yeah, he was a great fighter. Had he not had the craziness and the drug problems, he would have been a world champion.
Right.
But I was sparring with him, man. I sparred with him probably
wow.
100 rounds.
Wow.
And Angelo was super good because he was world renowned. The guy, Sports Illustrated always got things from him. He had all the pictures. His garage was full of memorabilia. His name was Hank Kaplan. You remember Hank?
Sure,
Kaplan?
of course I know. I met Hank Kaplan too in January of 1980. I met Kaplan, Chris Dundee, and Angelo. Carry on.
Yeah, because Hank Kaplan was good friends with a guy named Nelson Kitchen. They used to write back and forth all the time.
Right.
And Hank took us to the gym and introduced us to Angelo. And Angelo, you wouldn't believe what he gave me. He gave me Sugar Ray Leonard's white boxing boots that I still have at home that I got Sugar Ray Leonard later on to sign and stuff.
Wow.
Classic.
That's strong. I met Leonard when I was at your event.
Yeah, that's right. When we were here in Vancouver, that's right. Yeah, and he was at your event too in Vegas.
Yes, he was.
Rival.
And I still see him. I saw him 2 weeks ago at the Roy Jones Mike Tyson fight because he was one of the commentators. I couldn't get to him because they kind of had them up on an elevated platform and stage. So after the fight was over, I just walked over and he saw me and he pointed to me and I waved at him and. So at least we saw each other, but he knows me like we're friends, It's kind of nice. Here was a kid that as a kid, I chased him down in Montreal to get an autograph when he came for the press conference with Roberto Duran. He signed an autograph for me. I still have that picture. I want to show it to him one day, but I still have the picture that he signed. And now we're friends, so it's crazy where life takes you.
These are great stories, man. I'm just listening, man. This is incredible. Wow.
I almost did a TV series with Sugar Ray Leonard.
Is that right?
No
yeah,
way.
it was called L.A. Heat, and it was Sugar Ray Leonard and I were going to be the two leads. We were two detectives, and Joseph Merhay, Richard Pepper was going to produce it, and they called me up and says, "Yeah, we want to do a series with you and Sugar Ray Leonard." I'm like, "Oh my God, really? Okay, cool. This could be my big break." And it went on for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and boom, everything changed, went into another direction, and we got canned.
Yeah,
we didn't even go. But that's
Hollywood.
my Sugar Ray Leonard story. Hollywood, yeah. Holly Weird.
Really weird, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Russ, what happened to your show, man? That was literally the first boxing show I ever watched as a kid. So what happened back in the day?
Not only is it the first, it's the only boxing show ever of its kind on national television.
Yeah.
No, even later in years, Jim Lampley kind of did an offshoot on HBO, and I don't care what anybody says, it was not as good as ours. And the only drawback we had was we were a Canadian show and not an American show on HBO. Basically what happened, and as much as I'd like to blame TSN for that, I can't really blame them for it. When the show was created, it was coming out of the Olympics in Greece that year, where, I had gotten some reviews, I guess, from some media critics, about, Russ Anber did a good job. He should be on he should be on more often. We shouldn't have to wait just for the Olympics to watch him, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that said, fine. But TSN at the time owned the rights to HBO properties in Canada. So they would always air the fights, sometimes live, or they would get the 7-day replay, and show the fight the week later, pay-per-view events, they would show them a week later. So the show was born from that essence that we were going to use this show as a platform to do a boxing show, to also give us a chance to review and promote upcoming boxing events that were going to be on TSN. And Phil King, who at the time was president of TSN, loved boxing, and he wanted to have a show that would allow us to promote this, promote that platform, which we did for 3 years. And you know, it really was a great show. It was 3 of the best years of my life of doing that show and understanding about television and how it worked really on a week-to-week basis. And I mean, we always got good reviews as far as I know. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about it. But then what happened, and the ratings were good, but then what happened is HBO Canada came into existence. And as a result, TSN lost their rights to the 7-day window, and they got put like on a 30-day window or something. So HBO Canada had the rights to the pay-per-views or the 7-day window, you know, showing the fight the week later or whatever. And I guess TSN at one point said, well, why are we investing in a show that's going to promote, you know, events that are going to be on another network? And that ended Russ Anber. So, you know, it was great while it lasted, but, you know, listen, it's given me a chance to move on and do other things. And as a result of working with other fighters now and traveling as a cut man and hand wrapper, you know, I've got super elite status on Air Canada. So, you know, it's good.
Well, that's like
Air Canada. There you go.
Well, like literally, that's where I saw you, because I'd always watch your show, and then I recognized you cornering Vasily Lomachenko, and I was like, wait, I'm like, where is this guy from? Like, I haven't seen this guy before. And I had to search you up. I'm like, Canadian show, like I didn't know your name, and it was crazy. And then even when Manny was like, oh, I get my buddy Russ on here, and I'm like, okay, who's Russ Anber? And I'm like, what? Wow. Oh, man. So anyways, I'm fan. I love your show, man. It's just great to have you here, man.
Well, I love doing it. It was a lot of fun doing that show, and it's you know, when you think about how long ago that was now, you know, it's been a while since that was done. Our first show that we opened that we did, like, to launch the show, was De La Hoya Hopkins. Was the first show that we previewed. So you know, it's we've come through a lot of fighters since then, and you know, different roads get traveled in boxing, and time passes. And you know, you saying what you just said, Hugo, is it resonates with me, because even now when I deal with fighters, you know, whether it be Lomachenko, Usyk, or any of the guys that I'm dealing with now, they have no clue who I am, where I came from, you know, and what my beginnings were. And there's only a handful of people, as they're dying off one by one, who remember me from my very beginnings in the sport. And you know, I've been doing this and being in the corners of fighters since 1979. You know, I've been on the air since 1988. You guys weren't even born. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy, like, to turn, you know, me and Manny are here, and you know, we were just kids. We were just kids then, and now people are saying, "Oh man, I never heard of you. You know, I just saw you in a corner. I didn't know you were at corners." Okay, so it's,
you know,
I saw a petition online. I saw a petition online to bring your show back. People were upset.
You know, the problem as well is that the rest of Canada, for whatever it's worth, like when you compare it to Quebec, doesn't give two flying F's about boxing. You know, they don't care. It doesn't matter. They care about hockey in July. They care about curling, and that's it. Like, then they care about hockey and hockey. They don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. It's they've reduced boxing to such a niche audience that there's not enough of a voice in Canada. You know, I mean, and I think you can see that if you were to go on, if you go on the RDS website, which is the French TSN, and you look on the header, boxing is like 4th or 5th along to click on it on the main page. You know, you want to know about boxing, you click there. You go on the TSN website, and it's under other sports with Canada Winter Games, you know, under amateur sports. Like, you can't even find it, you know, to get boxing news on TSN. So the dynamics of Canada as opposed to what boxing means in the province of Quebec is massive.
Wow.
And it's always been like that, eh, Russ? Like, I mean, historically, boxing, like the Hilton brothers, and before the Hilton brothers, there was, like, who's that? There's just so many fighters out of Montreal.
It's I've often said that, you know, it's part of the sporting soul of the Quebecois. You know, it's part of their fabric. You know, as a people, They love hockey. Not to say they don't love hockey, but boxing is a very close second, especially now with baseball gone. But boxing, they've had heroes in boxing, you know, who have fought around the world. Like boxing was very strong. It was so strong that back in the day when boxing was real, you know, Canadian title fights were 12 rounds. You know, you had to fight for the Canadian title was a 12-round fight. And it meant something to be the Canadian champion. You know, when you were the Canadian champion, you know, that meant something. That got you a ranking in the NABF. That ranking in the NABF could get you a shot at an NABF title, which puts you in the top 10 in the world. Like, it meant something to be a national champion. Now, I bet you none of you can name who a Canadian champion is. And if you could, ask me who he defended his title against. No one knows. No one cares. Like, it's irrelevant now, you know, like it just doesn't matter. But the Canadian, when you were Gaetan Hart or Nicky Furlano, it meant something to be the Canadian champion. When Mello fought Marcotte in front of 20,000 people in the Montreal Forum for the Canadian title.
Yeah.
Wow.
Eddie Mello was an amazing fighter, I heard.
From Toronto, you know, he was one of the biggest ticket sellers ever in Montreal. Turned pro. He wasn't even 17. He was 17, wasn't even 18 when he turned pro, and became a star in Montreal, a star. And I mean, a real bona fide ticket seller, and stuff that you don't see nowadays. Guys, believe me when I tell you, you know, like I said, I've been doing this as a trainer since 1979, and the sport I got into barely resembles the sport of what it is today. I mean, it's not even close. And amateur boxing, forget about it. Don't even get me started on that. You know, it's a train wreck compared to what amateur boxing used to be.
Wow. That's sad.
It is.
There's a connection with Eddie Mello in Vancouver, you know, because his daughter, Jessie Mello.
Yeah, I know her very well.
Yeah, she lives here in Vancouver. I talk to her all the time.
Yeah.
Super.
Well, if you talk to her,
girl.
tell her about me.
I know. She knows you. I know. We've talked about you before.
Yeah.
Super
When she had her first, she has like an alumni Eddie Mello Legacy Foundation thing that she does, right? And we support her as a company and stuff. We support her. And when she did her first kind of like alumni reunion, if you will, she did it on kind of like a cruise boat in Toronto, okay, in the harbor, which took you around. You had dinner, and it was like a 3-hour thing, like Gilligan's Island. It was a 3-hour tour around. See, he laughs. The old guy laughs, right? The younger guys have no idea what I'm
who Gilligan is.
Not a clue. Not a clue. So they take and I said, Jess, we're gonna do something special. She said, oh, Russ, Nikki's gonna be there. I said, I'm gonna do something special for you. And I got Gaetan Hart to come up as a surprise. When they saw each other, guys, it's one of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced in boxing. And like now it still sends shiver down my spine that when they met, these guys fought 3 times in 3 wars, you know, and they hadn't seen each other since. And Nicky is such a happy-go-lucky guy, and so's Gaetan. And when they saw each other, they hugged and everything. I mean, it was a lot of people had no idea what that connection was. But for those of us who did, it was a real special moment that, you know, 2 great fighters like Nicky Furlano, who, again, in case you didn't know, Nicky Furlano became the first fighter ever to go 15 rounds with Aaron Pryor.
Whoa. Aaron Pryor's Cincinnati, man, my old stomping grounds. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 15 rounds with Aaron Pryor.
And he got dropped twice in the second round. Everyone thought it was over, and he went 15 rounds.
15 rounds. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, it was so beautiful to see that. And tell Jess about that, because for me, that's still a highlight moment of my life that I was able to pull that off for them. It meant a lot to them as well, that people remembered what they did. You know what I mean? And because there's no film of it, doesn't exist. I mean, I don't know who has that, but you just can't find it. That it seems like that whole era of boxing in the 70s and 80s just kind of up and vanished from existence. That it's like it never took place. You know, like it never happened, and it's a shame, because the fighters that were around in Canada at that time, you know, who vied for titles at the world level, who fought, who were tough guys, good fighters. You know, we don't see them and we don't honor them today in Canada, and it's sad. It's a shame.
It's very
I'm
sad.
glad I saw it.
Wow.
But when I die, no one's
There.
gonna know.
Yeah. Unless you had somebody in the audience with was the Super 8.
You never. Well, you know,
could probably die with it. Yeah.
Here's the thing:
Yeah.
that was recorded,
Yeah.
but in those days, TV stations, much like what almost happened with the 72 series between Canada and the Russians, they almost erased that tape as well, because in those days they'd record stuff and then they'd need the tapes again. So they used to put them through this machine that erased everything, and so they could reuse them.
Wow.
And one guy at CBC decided, maybe I should hold on to these. You know, this might kind of be important and not erase that. They almost erased the 7 year. There's a ton of stuff that, you know, TV networks in those days, it was just common practice. You know, you did something, boom, you kept it for a while, and then after it aired, I don't even know if any of my TSN in this corner stuff exists anymore. I don't know.
I tried finding some. I couldn't find any.
It's sad.
Yeah,
Very sad.
I agree.
Sad because we had a thing. I had a portion on the show that was called a soapbox, where, you know, I would talk on a subject of something that happened, and I'd write that up myself. And there was some really powerful stuff that was written and some really good points that I made in boxing that would probably look back on them and see what I said then. You know, did it come true today? Did it happen like I said? And it would have been nice to see if that still exists. And I'm going to have to contact my friends at TSN and see if that is still there or not. I wonder about that. Yeah.
I'd like to know your thoughts on Tyson Jones and exhibition fights, and also this Logan Paul Mayweather.
It's funny because I just did this segment on RDS today on my show. And if you go on RDS, you can find the video that has me talking about that. I don't know how good your French is, but we talked about that. And the question put to me was almost like you put it, and said, doesn't this make boxing look bad? And I said, this has nothing to do with boxing.
Yeah.
This makes the world look bad. You know, this is a sign of the times of where we live now, that, you know, this social media, the power that it has in being able to create stars and followers, which is now so important. Doesn't matter what knowledge is, just followers matter. And I said, boxing has always been a ticket-orientated sport. You know, we sell tickets, we put asses in seats, we sell pay-per-views. And anybody in boxing who is criticizing Mayweather, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, anybody who's criticizing them is a hypocrite, because they would love to have a fighter that could command that kind of money. And if they had the fighter or the person that Mayweather says, yeah, I'll fight him, and this is how much we're going to make, they would all step over each other to have that opportunity. So any one of those lying hypocrites tell you they don't feel this is right, they're full of shit. Okay. They would love to have that opportunity and get these guys. And it's not their fault that their followers, if you will, or their fans tune in and pay the money to see whatever spectacle they're in. And I really came to that realization after the Jones-Tyson fight, because when I got back, my friends said to me that their kids said, oh, daddy, we want to watch the boxing. Jake Paul is fighting Nate Robinson. We want to see that. They had no clue who Tyson and Roy Jones were.
That's
no
sad.
clue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's sad.
It's sad.
Yes, but it's also sad for boxing that we don't do better, and that these YouTubers know who this guy is and he's gonna box.
Yeah.
This Jake Paul is and he's gonna box. So, I guess anything that turns eyes to boxing is good, but now it's about money. I mean, Nate Robinson got like $600,000, which for all intent and purposes set a Guinness Book World Record as the highest paid fighter ever to step into a ring for the first time. Wow. in the history of the sport.
600 grand.
600 grand.
Nate Robinson, really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's what I heard.
No.
I mean, am I wrong? You can look it up.
You know what
maybe,
Paul got? Any idea what Paul got? Nate
Paul, I heard, was in the millions. Now, if this is true or not, I don't know. But, you know,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They're casting people in movies off of their followers on YouTube and Instagram and shit, regardless of the talent. It's crazy.
My daughter is 22 years old. She works for a media company here in Montreal. She has over 112,000 followers. And she does lives on Instagram where she gets up to 200, 300 viewers at one time watching her cook her supper, eat. And sometimes she has me on and they say, oh, yeah, your dad's so cool. But she has more followers than me. More people watch her than watch me.
It's crazy.
Like, I don't know who these people are, but they watch her. But no one gives a crap about me, or what I've done. And I think another example of that is like with these internet coaches. It's the same thing as well. These internet coaches, they get hundreds of thousands of followers, giving tips online. They're terrible. They've never produced a fighter in their life. They have no grounds to be giving away instruction. And if they have hundreds of thousands of viewers, I should have 1 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
In your opinion, who do you think had the better career, Jones or Tyson?
Oh, I think both of them had a very similar career. Their legacy was hurt, with probably staying on too long or whatever. But I think they both had a very similar career. And in my opinion, both are, legends of the sport. And I think if Roy doesn't come back down from heavyweight after beating John Ruiz, not that maybe he should have stayed at heavyweight, but Roy's whole career was built on his outstanding speed and reflex and his God-given natural ability. And, weakening himself to come back down to light heavyweight and facing somebody like Tarver, and Roy never says no. That's the thing. He never says no and never turns down a challenge. That unfortunately tarnished it, because if that doesn't happen, you might arguably be talking about Sugar Ray Robinson, Roy Jones, Willie Pep, that would have been, he'd have been in there as the greatest of all time, because nobody did the things that Roy Jones did. Nobody in any era. So he certainly would have gone down as one of the greatest pound for pound fighters in boxing history. Still does, but there's the tarnish to it,
What was it like being there, though? It was a beautifully done, produced show, the Tyson-Jones fight. I loved the way it looked.
Being there with Roy was cool. And you know what else it made me realize, fellas? When Roy and Mike were waiting to weigh in, Roy was on one side and Tyson's on the other, and they're pacing and they're looking at the floor. And I realized that at that moment, in their mind, they were 25 again.
Yeah.
In their mind, they're going to fight. It doesn't matter what their age was. I could see the mindset. I could see how Roy's mood had changed from 2 days previous to the weigh-in. Like it's like getting into the zone kind of thing, and and he was psyched about this is going to be a fight, and they're pacing and walking, and the peacock's tail is starting to come out, and their chest is out, and Tyson was looking at the ground, his shoulders, his head down, and his shoulders were rolling, and he's pacing back and forth. Like, he didn't know he was 55, 54. Like, he didn't care.
The eyes.
You're a fighter. You're a fighter, till you die. That's what you do. You think that way. So when the opportunity presents itself, it's like a fighter. Anybody, if God forbid you're attacked in the, Manny is attacked in the street or accosted, right away that instinct of fighter comes out, and you throw the right punch you're supposed to throw, or you do something. Well, that's the same thing for Tyson. It was a weigh-in. Now this is the way you act. This is what you do. This is how you get ready. And when he came out in the fight, you could see that this was muscle memory. This was him doing what he has done for his entire life.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old he is. Okay, he didn't do it as good as when he was 22, granted. You know, it wasn't quite as fast.
Shit.
But boy, there wasn't much. To the layman, there wasn't much difference.
Yeah.
To a fight guy, you see a difference, but to a layman, there wasn't much difference. And he said something at the press conference afterwards, which really hit home when he said, when you have a guy like Jerry Rice, who, you know, doesn't get to play in the NFL anymore because it takes him a second or two longer to run what he used to run, and we replace him, we get rid of him for somebody else, and all the fans would rather see Jerry Rice run 1 second slower than see the guy who replaced him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? They did 1.2 to 1.5 million buys on pay-per-view. And to put that into perspective, Spence and Garcia fought each other this past weekend, and they did 125,000.
Wow.
People want to see their heroes, you know, whether it's, I don't think anybody expected Tyson to be Tyson of 22. None of us are, well, except for you younger guys, but none of us are what we were at 22. You know what I mean? But it's an opportunity for the fans to see the heroes of their youth. Yeah. It's an opportunity for the fans to say, thank you, you know, for what the thrills you brought us over the years. Yeah. And it's also an opportunity for Roy and Mike, probably the two greatest legends in boxing history, two of the greatest legends in boxing history, and certainly two of the biggest legends of this generation. They earned the right to do whatever the hell they want. And if they want to get back in the ring at the age of 55, who the hell is anybody to stop them? Tyson trained hard for this, and they even postponed the event. They said, I guess for COVID reasons or whatever, but they postponed it because Tyson needed more time to get ready. This event was around Tyson, and they needed for Tyson to look good. And he did. And he prepared, and he fought. He did the 8 rounds, and he weighed 220 pounds, which was his fighting weight, you know? So he prepared, and he did it. You got to give tip to hat to both of them. They did something that not a lot of humans could do. But now everyone's going to copy it. Everyone's going to try to do something, a spin-off on it, you know? But at least you didn't feel like you were ripped off the way Mayweather made you feel when he fought the Japanese guy when he went over to Japan, you know, and blasted out this kid in 1 round, you know, and that kind of wasn't very nice. You know, there were 2 guys in there that showed their stuff. And
how's Roy feeling after the fight?
he said his jaw was hurt. He kept going, he said, my jaw hurts. And then the next day he said he was really sore. And I said, well, that's what happens when you wrestle with a monster, you know, and you keep trying to hold on to a monster like Tyson. So, yeah.
This weekend, there's a big fight, Joshua Pulev. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Listen, I think, you know, you're never supposed to look ahead. And you know, Anthony Joshua, you know, knows that you can't do that, you know, because everybody's vulnerable.
Andy Ruiz, just ask him about Andy Ruiz.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And anybody could be vulnerable, right? But I think, you know, this is a stage that's been set for Joshua to really get his coming out party after the win in the rematch against Ruiz. And I think that it's also the setup for Fury and Joshua. That's the one that has to happen. That's the fight that has to happen. Is forget Wilder. Wilder is so irrelevant in this. It's not even funny. He had his opportunity. He had his opportunity to fight Joshua. He turned that down. Then he fought Fury, and he won 2 rounds out of 20. Yeah. So, or 19, whatever it was, total rounds that they fought. And, you know, he can sit and wait for his rematch. The money fight to make and the fight that people want to see is Joshua Fury, and that likely might be the biggest fight in heavyweight history in terms of dollars.
How do you think that goes?
It's listen, I believe that a right Tyson Fury, mentally, physically, at his best, is a problem for any human that ever lived in the heavyweight division. He is not an easy out by any stretch of the imagination. I don't care if it's Lennox, Joe Louis, name who you want. You know, he already beat Klitschko, so you know, there goes that. But he didn't beat Vitaly. But you know, it's he's a tough out for anybody. He's so skilled. He's smart. He believes in himself. He's a tough man. He has everything going for him. He's just crazy enough to be the heavyweight champion of the world. And there's something that makes him special. And nobody in history is good. Now, that's not to say he wouldn't get beat. Yeah, he could get beat. You know, Foreman could crack him with one. Foreman could crack anybody with one. You know, that ever lived, any human that ever lived, Foreman could potentially have beaten. But Tyson Fury gives anybody a hard time in it. So, you know, it's not going to be a cakewalk for Joshua or anybody for that matter.
Wow. Who's your top 5 current pound for pound, if you had to list right now, of the top current?
I hate this, right? Just so you know, like this whole business of, you know, top 5, top 10 pound for pound. There aren't even 10 fighters that are worthy of being called pound for pound. You know, like it takes a special athlete to be a pound for pound. It takes special greatness to be called pound for pound. Like that bothers me because people don't understand what that means when they gave that name to Sugar Ray Robinson and said pound for pound. That was like the ultimate compliment that you could give somebody. You have to be so great that you're good enough to beat anybody regardless of the division they put you in. And you do everything better than everybody else does it. And that's what I think people forget and they lose of what that means pound for pound. Pound for pound means you're a perfect fighting machine. That you take all the aspects of boxing, the jab, the right hand, the left hook, the body attack, infighting, footwork, movement, ring generalship, every chin, heart, everything. And you combine that to create this perfect fighter. There's not 10 of them. There's probably not 5 of them.
Lomachenko would be one, right? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Lomachenko?
Well, absolutely. You know, and forget about the loss to Lopez, because that's a handicap loss. You know, like you keep having to give up weight. You keep having to give a handicap to somebody because you're too strong for everybody in your division. And in this internet age, nobody accepts the fact that, oh, you only won a title in 2 weight classes? Is that all? Well, this guy won them in 7 and he won them in 9 and he won, you know, because there's so many titles to go around. Marvin Hagler was only the middleweight champion of the world. Carlos Monzon was only the middleweight champion of the world. That's it. But that's what you were, you know? And so I don't, you know, that fight with Lopez, you know, again, will tarnish Loma's image and his legacy. But in terms of skill set and everything he does, you can't find a better fighter, another fighter, I should say, who does all the things Loma does better than Loma does it.
Wow.
Maybe equal, maybe one or 2 items might be a little bit more, but overall, you won't find that. So right now, if I had to pick somebody, I would say right now, the most complete fighter in the game, if we want to use that word instead of pound for pound, I say, let's say the 2 most complete fighters in the game, but the one with the better resume is Canelo. Yeah. And then I'd have to say Crawford comes in, you know, at a close second. You know, they do everything that you would teach a fighter to do, that you would train a boxer to do, that you would expect a fighter to do. These guys do it as a complete package, as good or better than anybody. Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think of Crawford and if that fight were ever made, who knows if it's ever going to get made? But if it does get made, who would you go with?
Look, I had this, Matt asked me this question yesterday when we did our podcast. And I think, everyone's saying, well, Crawford would have to be the favorite. Crawford would have to be the favorite. Well, if he was the favorite, he would be a favorite by like 51-49 or 52-48. It would be, that's how close it would be. I think it's a very close fight. Spence brings a great skill set to the table.
He's got amazing defense. Don't you think he's got like impenetrable, eh?
And he uses that southpaw advantage to really, really well. Like, that's a great jab he's got. And if that's any indication, if the Kell Brook fight is an indication, the jab, the southpaw jab, could cause all kinds of problems for Crawford. It could make it difficult. But to me, although I don't consider it quite on the same level, as say Leonard Hearns, but when they fought each other, it doesn't matter who you picked, you weren't sure you were right with your pick.
No, that was in 1980 or 81, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's that was a pick'em fight, and it fought like a pick'em fight. And I think Errol Spence and Crawford would be that same type of pick. You might want to say, oh yeah, Crawford's going to beat him. Oh yeah, Spence will beat him. You don't know that.
You don't know. No one's going to know that until they fight. Hopefully they get the fight.
Correct.
And what's preventing that? Is it you think it's the promotion, like the Bob Arum, and not wanting to lose his bread and butter guy? Or
I don't think it's his bread and butter guy. I don't think it's
he's one of them.
Butter guy but there's a lot of issues going on with that, but it appears to be some kind of a promotional thing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It looks to be that. It looks like Crawford doesn't want to stay with Top Rank, or he's trying to negotiate in the media, which Top Rank doesn't like when you do things like that. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And at the end of the day, all the top welterweights seem to be signed with PBC and Al Heyman. Yeah. So it looks like a lot of fights are going to happen,
without
there.
Crawford.
I'm sorry?
Without Crawford. They're going to happen without Crawford.
Yeah, and if Crawford wants to be a part of that, he's going to have to jump ship and go over there. And, you likely might see Crawford or Spence fight Pacquiao first before they fight each other. And, you might see Sean Porter fight somebody in there. So, before Spence and Crawford meet, I don't think they're going to be rushing to the table right away, especially with Spence having been out of action for as long as he was and now just coming back. They might wait a little bit, maybe late next year at the earliest, or the following. I'm not sure I see it happening before that. Not if Pacquiao's still around, because if I'm either Crawford or Spence, I want Pacquiao before the other ones, because that's the money fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way it rocks.
What are your thoughts on... Oh, no, go for it, Manny.
No, I don't know. I was wanting to maybe ask this at the end, but we can tape this in. But, like a lot of... Russ mentioned something about Angelo Dundee not being the greatest trainer. And I agree with Russ, because I was with him, and he's more of a psychological guy, that can work with your mind and things. Whereas, I trained with Eddie Futch a little bit as well when I was in Las Vegas at the Nevada Partners Gym. And that guy broke down boxing like it was, I've never seen anything like it, right? And, but what a lot of people don't realize is that Russ Anber is one of the only guys that I know that actually had guys come into the gym their very first day, and he got them to Olympic Games and world titles. Like a lot of these guys, like you got to remember, like Angelo Dundee got Muhammad Ali when he was already Olympic champion. He got Sugar Ray Leonard when he was already Olympic champion. Freddie Roach got Manny Pacquiao when he already had 20 or 30 pro fights. He didn't start them. Russ Anber started. Was it 3 or 4 Olympians, Russ?
I've had 4 Olympians, but I've had 4 Olympians, but I had Howard. Who went
Hercules.
on. Herc, Otis Grant.
But he didn't go to the Olympics.
He didn't go to the Olympics, but
he was world champion.
But he became world champion, So
yeah, that's right. But in terms of Olympians, though, like I'm thinking, you had Ron. What's Ron's last name?
Donaldson.
Ron. Donaldson, yeah, Ron Donaldson, Hercules Cavellos, and
John
Howard
Kelman.
Grant.
John Kelman.
John
and Howard
Kelman
Grant.
as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but these guys started with Russ Anber when they first started boxing. That's what's the amazing part of it. That's what goes to show who a real trainer is and what sort of pretend trainers might be. That's what
You're making me
getting at,
blush now. You're embarrassing.
pretty amazing. No, it's like a lot of people don't realize that about Russ Anber. A lot of people, they see Russ Anber as the cut man, the guy that's coming in doing cuts, and they see it before the fights. They see Russ doing this masterful job of wrapping hands, but they don't realize that Russ knows the game inside out. And question I had for you is like, how does that affect or how does that help you when you're in the corner of a Callum Smith that's going to fight Canelo probably in the biggest fight of his life? How does that help you out?
That's what I'd like to think, and I think with a lot of but thank you, Manny, by the way. I appreciate that, and it's true that but that's been the recipe in the States for years, this guy's a great trainer. And I mean, I'll tell you a story. When Jean Pascal fought Sergey Kovalev the second time, he had left Mark Ramsey.
Right.
Okay, he had left Mark Ramsey after the first Kovalev fight and went to work with Freddie Roach. And, the time they were together was just too short of a time for any blending to take place, any kind of, gelling that was going to happen that could have made a difference. And Jean got beat worse in the second fight than he did in the first. And 2 rounds before it was stopped, I said to Freddie, you got to stop this fight. I'm not going to let this keep going on. You got to stop the fight. So he came back to the corner, and Freddie told him, Jean, I'm going to stop the fight. And John said, no, give me one more round. Give me one more round. And Freddie said, no, you're taking a beat. And I said, no, Jean. He said, no, give me one more round. So he talked us into giving him one more round, went out there, didn't do much, came back, and we stopped the fight. And later, after listening to the broadcast, I heard Jim Lampley say, and that's why Freddie Roach is a Hall of Fame trainer, because he stopped the fight and he knew when to stop it. And I thought, okay, but that's the mentality that they have. They don't understand about grooming a fighter, making a fighter, teaching a fighter. Yeah. They see a guy works his corner, did a great job, gave him an instruction, he did it. Great trainer, what a great job he did. They have no clue. They're completely clueless. So back to your original question of how it helps me. I think with a lot of fighters that I work with, I bring an added element that other cut men don't. I can call stuff in the corner. I give the fighters instruction in the corner. When Callum Smith fought George Groves in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, one of the best trips of my life, having gone to Saudi Arabia. I'm watching him warm up in the dressing room, and I'm seeing he's throwing the long right hand. And George Groves loves to keep that left hand low, and he rolls with the right hand, and he wants to counter with the right. So at one point, I think it was the round before he stops him, Callum comes back to the corner. I take the mouthpiece out. And just before give him water, all that stuff with the Vaseline on, just before he goes out, to get his attention, I slap him. I go, throw the fucking left hook.
Right after the right, yeah.
And he went out there and knocks him out with a left hook. And Anthony Crollo was in the corner with me. And Anthony's a great guy. Anthony was the first UK fighter whose hands I ever wrapped. And, after I did him, I got a bunch of work with Joe Gallagher's guys. But he was standing there and he said, Russ, you called it, mate. And so that makes me feel good that I can bring that element to a corner. Same thing with Mick Conlon. I've got Mick Conlon's attention in the corner. He listens to what I say. I feel I have an input in what he should be doing. And that makes me feel good. And of course, with guys like Better Biev and stuff as well, I got that. So that feels kind of good to be able to do that, that I bring that little extra element but sometimes these guys don't even know that I know this stuff. They think I do magic tricks. I play pool, I wrap hands, and that's all I do,
You're a teacher.
They don't know.
Tell us about Rival, how that started, your company.
One quote that I read that gave me more respect for your company is that you said there were businessmen that were looking to infiltrate the boxing world, but you were a boxing guy infiltrating the business world. And I thought that was brilliant. Absolutely
Jerry,
brilliant.
thank God bless you. Thank you very much. I'm glad somebody listens to something.
It was brilliant,
you know,
brother. Yeah.
And I believe that, because if I was any good at business, Rival would be even more successful than it is now.
Wow.
You know, like Rival is not successful because of me. It's successful in spite of me, you know, like, because I'm not a good businessman. I'm a boxing guy, you know, like, when I first started selling boxing equipment was in 1985. I had opened my gym in 1983. I started selling boxing equipment in 1985. And I started representing a new company that had emerged in the United States a couple of years earlier, which was called Ringside. And it was a guy who sold equipment out of his garage. And a friend of mine, a former trainer, he passed away now, one of my mentors, a great trainer when we talk about teachers, and Manny might remember who it is John Davenport.
Yeah.
And Davenport said, I told him I was looking for equipment, and he said, well, give these guys a call. And he handed me this tiny little catalog that was made out of newspaper material. That's how little money they had. The catalog was printed on newspaper paper, you know, like that's what it was, right? The cheapest you could get. And, you know, because they were trying to start a business. And after I got his equipment, I loved it so much. I sent him a letter, right? Because we didn't have email then. A letter, by the way, is when you used to write things on a piece of paper, and envelope, put a stamp on it, and it would get to a next destination a week later. But I sent it off and said, I want to sell your stuff. And I became he says, okay. And he gave me the stuff at a discount. And I introduced Ringside to Canada. And for 13 years, I had a company called Ringside Canada, and I sold Ringside equipment, and I had gyms and stuff. And I was selling for, you know, I don't know, $200,000-300,000 a year of boxing equipment across the country. It wasn't big, but I was only doing it as an opportunity, as a means to supplement the training of fighters that I wanted to do. So we would go to shows, and I would just set up a table, put the gloves and the equipment on the table, and people would try it on and say, oh, wow, this nice. Yeah, I'd like to buy that. And, you know, I'd sell it, and it paid for the trips, and I was able to buy a van because of that. And I take my fighters where I needed to go, and it gave me an income being at boxing events anyways. And it gave me an income and an opportunity to make some money. So that's how I got started in selling of boxing. And that's still almost true today. That everything I've done in my life, whether it's been TV, whether it's been Rival, everything has been done as a way to supplement an income that allows me to do the career that I'm doing, because I can't live only off of the work I do as a trainer or a cut man. You know, as a trainer, you make 10%, 15%, maybe if I'm lucky. 15%, the only way you could live off that is if your fighter is making millions, that you could live off that. When a fighter's making $40,000 for a fight, you know, and he gives me $4,000 or $5,000, you know, out of that, how, before taxes, how far do you think that gets you? You know how many fights you have to have at $50,000? How many fighters they're out there making $50,000 a fight now? There's not. So, you know, like, so I had to find another way to supplement the income. So after 13 years of selling for Ringside, myself and 2 other people were released from Ringside without notification. We were fired on the spot for no reason other than whatever John Brown, the mental case, decided he wanted to do. You know, so okay, so we were gone. So I went to bed on a Friday with a company and a job and an income, and woke up on Monday to no income, no job, no company, no nothing, right? So, and I got notified by fax as well. You know, I got a fax telling me, would you like me to explain what a fax is as well?
Today that would be a tweet. No, tweet.
Yeah.
Tweet.
So yeah, today that would be probably a tweet.
Tweet.
Yeah. So I go for about a year without doing any equipment business, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get back into this? I've got to get back into selling equipment. I've got to make stuff. I got to do something. But I was busy enough because that was the year that Otis Grant fought for the world title twice and then fought Roy Jones. So I was really busy with boxing, and there was a little bit of money coming in. So I wasn't I wasn't homeless yet. You know what I mean? It was still okay. I got a call when we were in training camp for the Ryan Rhodes fight when Otis fought for the world title. And it was from one of the guys that was fired by John Brown as well, along with me, saying that they had started a company called Title Boxing.
I remember Title.
You guys know Title now. And they wanted me to be the representative in Canada. And so I just transitioned that, parlayed that right into, yep, guys, okay. I knew them. They knew me. And I started selling title equipment. And I realized at that point, like, and right away, people started buying from me again. Go to the shows, put out the stuff, show them I got this new brand. And people right away were buying. And I realized that they weren't just buying the equipment, but there was a certain amount of trust and confidence in buying it from me.
I see that. Whoa.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the equipment was good. It's not like it wasn't good equipment because I had to sell good equipment. I'm not going to sell junk. And Title was good equipment. So during that time, I get a visit at my office by a vendor from Pakistan who has been making motorcycle equipment, chaps, saddlebags, gloves, all the leatherware, jackets. And he was in town visiting some of his customers. And he asked one of them, do they know anybody who's in boxing? Because they've started up a division in their factory of making boxing equipment. And the guy that he asked knew who I was. He had known me through my father because my father used to sell him buckles for their motorcycle wear. And he knew I was in boxing. So he said, yeah, they go see Russ Anber. So this guy comes to see me. And at the time it was right around that time that I'm toying with the idea of starting my own brand, because what's happening is I'm selling equipment for Title, but I work and go to work every day and sell equipment. And then at the end of the year, after selling for 200,000 for the year or 250 or whatever, I made no money. I just broke even, so I'm not making any money. I'm paying bills, but not making any money. Right. So I start toying with the idea that I need to start being able to make my own money on this, and my brother comes up with the name Rival. And I did a few drawings and I had a few ideas of what I wanted to do. So this guy comes to see me out of the blue and I tell him, I said, that's really interesting. I'd really love to do that. And I figured, wow, this is like a godsend, this is like, it's right at the right time. This guy sent here to help me out. Wow. And I said to him, what's the minimum? And he said, one container, we'll do one container for you. No problem. And that's kind of when my shoulders slumped. And I said, I thank you very much. I really appreciate the offer, but I said, I can't afford it. Like I can't afford a container, but if I ever do, I'll keep you in mind, and give me his card. And I shook his hand and he left. And the next day I'm in my office and they buzz me on the phone and they say, Mr. Tariq is here to see you. Why? So, okay, send them up. So he comes up and he says, oh, Mr. Russ, he says, I don't sleep last night. I said, why? What happened? He says, I thinking about what you wanted to do. And I think a lot about what you said and what you want to do. And he says, I think Rival could be very, very successful. Wow. He said, forget the minimums. He says, you just tell me what you want and I'll do it for you. And I said, well, I've only got $2,000 to my name. He says, okay, no problem. I said, but if you do that, I said, I promise you every order after that will be for more. It might be only by $1 more, but it'll be for more. And he said, okay, no problem, Mr. Russ. And I gave him my first order, and that's how I started Rival.
When's the book coming out?
I don't know when it is, but we're kind of like in the very, very early stages of putting together the layout and, how we want to do it and what we want to attribute the chapters to and what sequence we want to go with it, and it's too bad. I really like Dundee's name of his book, but you know, I can't steal that as my view from the corner, and that's exactly what it is.
Title. Yeah,
it is a good title, you know. And
well, I got something that's got to be in the book though, Russ.
it'll be there. Don't worry. I know what it is.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
What?
It's your cut in Denmark.
No, that's not. Forget about that. It was in Denmark, but remember we were waiting in the hotel lobby?
Yeah. Bernard and the naked guy that came in my room. Yeah, of course.
Some naked dude comes from Bernard's room into Russ's room. Trying to look for shelter. It was the craziest thing in the world, man. That's got to be in the book.
Nuts. We were in this hotel in Denmark. Great trip, by the way. One of my highlight moments of the trip. Yeah. Manny fought a great fight, got cut. Then we had to go to the hospital, get him all stitched up. And, you know, that was the first time actually Manny and I had met, and we became friends, and it's been for 1987. And
1987,
ever since. Manny was a junior and was beating everybody internationally, was going all around the world. There's who's this young kid, you know?
And I taught Russ some Spanish.
Yeah. That's right. And you know, that was his first year on the senior tour. He had got a very successful. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wrong on any of this, but you know, was successful as a junior, and then came up into the seniors, and you know, was now the #1 welterweight in Canada at the senior level.
I got lucky.
Yeah, well, you know,
this is where he goes.
Yeah. And you know, he fought there, and we became friends, and we were staying in this really nice hotel, and I was sharing a room with another one of the Canadian coaches who's here from Quebec. And in the middle of the night, he starts yelling my name, saying, "Russ, what are you doing? What are you doing?" You know, in French. Qu'est-ce que tu fais? I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm in my bed. What do you want?" He said, "Well, there's somebody in the room." And so I get up from my bed and I reach up and just flick on the light. And there's this naked guy in our room, you know, like he must have been drunk or something, walked into the wrong room and tried to get into bed with the other coach, you know, and he's naked. And I said, and it just so happened that I had just bought a knife. Like, I'm a knife collector. I like knives. And I pulled the knife. I said, "Get the fuck out of here, man. Get out of the room." And he grabbed Bernard's shirt, his golf shirt.
No, it was jacket. Wasn't it his jacket?
No, it was a golf shirt, like his pole.
Okay.
Grabbed it and covered himself up and left, you know. And then the next day in the lobby, came back to return the shirt that he had taken from us.
What was funny in the lobby though is because Russ is telling Bernard, "Hey Bernard, that's the guy.
That's the guy. Yeah, that's right.
He's got my shirt. You gotta go get my shirt." I said, "Well, you go get your shirt." And Bernard walks up to him and tapped him in the back. "Hey, I think he got my shirt." And the guy opens up his bag and gives him his shirt.
That's how it happened. That's right. That's exactly right.
That was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, Russ.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy, man. Yeah, there's Bernard. There's the guy that has your shirt. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Crazy. That's crazy.
Cool, memories, man. Russ.
Guys, we could go on, you know, telling, like, I've been doing this, like I said, since 1979. Wow. There's no way I can tell you all the stories that have happened over 41 years. But I'm glad I got to share with at least some of them with you now.
And good luck next weekend, Russ.
Good luck.
We're going to need it. We're going to need it. It's going to be hard to get a win in Texas against Canelo. That's that certainly is not going to be easy. And he's a great fighter. I'll you know, he's a seriously great fighter, but upsets happen in boxing. You know, they happen. And
you know what's going to happen? What happened in the Grove fight? Callum's going to keep showing him the right hand, and then Russ is going to say, "Hey, throw that left hook."
Maybe. I hope so. I hope I'm involved. I hope I play a role in the win. I really do. Yeah. I really hope I play a role, and there's not a better feeling of accomplishment when you can play a role in the victory. And I really hope I'm able to do it.
And that's what great trainers do. They got this right here, Russ. They got the eyes to be able to see and foresee what's coming, and doing stuff like that is amazing, right? Like I remember Angelo telling fighters, like, oh, that was a great right hand. And the guy's never thrown the right hand. And then all of a sudden, oh, the right hand's great. I better throw. There's knocks him out with the right hand.
Yeah, all kinds of that. And that's why it's so important for you to know your fighters and know the trigger points and know what you can say to them. And I remember when Jean Pascal fought Adrian Diacanu. Adrian Diacanu in the second fight, and he threw his shoulder out of socket, right? In I think the third or fourth round. So now his arm is out of socket, and he comes back to the corner, and like I'm massaging the arm, and they're thinking about stopping the fight. Like he can't move his arm. His arm is locked in this position. It's down like this. He can't move it. And I'm massaging the arm, and I didn't know what the hell I'm doing, right? I'm not an orthopedic surgeon, right?
Back in.
All of a sudden, click. I felt it click in my hand. And I said, Mark, it's back in, and he did this, and okay, back in and going. Wow. And when he came out for, a couple of rounds later, it's still sore. Just before he goes out, I said to him, imagine you're going to be able to tell everybody. I said, John, imagine you're going to be able to tell everyone at the press conference that you beat him with one arm. He was so proud. He went out there, like a champ, and dominated, Diacanu in that fight. So
it's crazy how the psychology works, Russ?
It sure does, man. It sure does. You just never know what you say. That's why, it's so important when you're dealing with young fighters in the gym and guys that, could have great potential. Sometimes you could just say something to them that discourages them from the sport, or keeps them forever. And you have to be so careful what you say to a fighter and to a youngster, and because they cling on every word you're saying, and you have to say the right things, man. So I hope I've said my share of right things. I'm sure I got things wrong, when I was, training fighters, but in the long run, you hope you got more right than you did wrong.
You're a great teacher. Yes, you're a great teacher, man.
We'll see. We'll see how, I hope that the people that I've had a chance to teach, remember that and appreciate it. And, you working with guys like Lomachenko, Usyk, these guys, these are great names, Beterbiev. They're great fighters. Like, they're so good, they would be great if Ronald McDonald was working their corner, like it wouldn't matter, right? I'm more proud of the fighters that have overachieved under my guidance more than anything, and I think if I had to pick one guy out, that guy would be Ron Donaldson. And you guys don't know who he is, doesn't mean anything to you. He never turned pro. When he came to my gym, he was a small little kid with size 10 feet. Like, they were so big that he would flop over his feet. We gave him the nickname the Duck, because that's the way he waddled, like a duck in the ring, like he waddled, and he would throw punches at you, and he'd run at you throwing punches. He wanted so hard to win. He wanted so hard, but he was so bad at what he did. Well, he eventually became Commonwealth Game gold medalist. He was a #1 middleweight in North America, and he went to the Olympic Games and lost to the gold medal champion in his opening bout, unfortunately. But the guy so that could have been the finals, really. Depends how the draw goes, right? And nobody expected him to ever amount to anything, and he became, one of the most successful fighters I had, and that's because he worked hard and there was a lot of teaching involved. And I think David Lemieux is probably another one, who lost his first 4 amateur fights. Like, he was 0-4 when he started and became world champion, So, and again, not because of he was a great puncher, became a great puncher, obviously. But when he was a kid, he wasn't that kind of a puncher, and he had to learn and went way beyond what his abilities were. Yeah. So those are the things that I take more pride in.
Russ, tell us about your podcast. What's it called, and where can people find it?
That's a good question. We're still working on it. We've done, I think, like 6 or 7 episodes of it so far. It's called Calling Russ Anber. You might be able to find it on YouTube. So it should be up there. If you go on my Twitter account, you'll see the posts that I've put out showing that it's there. So take a look and let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Is it just you, or do you do it with someone else?
No, with a friend of mine, Matthew Cassavant, who's a great boxing mind. I've known him since he's 17 years old. You know, we just sync off each other. He understands me. He's kind of like an old soul, and he appreciates, you know, the boxing, and he understands that there was history in boxing before what we see now, you know, and he understands how important it is to recognize those who came before us and paved the way for the fighters who are doing what they do today. If it wasn't for the fighters who came before, you guys wouldn't be talking to me now, and there'd be no boxing like we know it now, you know, if it wasn't for the fighters who came before that. So he's a real good guy that loves boxing, knows the sport from the business side, from the media side, from the gym side. He's been in the gym since he's 17. He understands it. He works as a cornerman, as a cut man. He gets it. He knows, you know, he does this stuff. He understands what it is. So it's really easy to do the podcast with him.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, if we could ever help you in any way, let us know, my friend.
I will do that. Absolutely. Listen, you guys have been really great. It's been an easy conversation, easy to talk to. I'm going to have
It's been 2 hours.
Crazy. I'm going to have to get the guy who's writing my book to talk to Manny and you guys and get some good information about me that I didn't give you. So
Sounds good, my friend. Thanks so much, Russ. You have yourself a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Manny, I'll talk to you.
Yeah, good luck in Texas.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
All right.
Take care.
See ya.
Take care, brother. All right, man. I thought it was great. I had a great time. He's a funny guy.
Awesome.
A lot of character.
Yeah, he's got a good personality.
Aaron Pryor connection, eh? Like the
my
Hawk
God,
Pryor.
yes.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
That's from the past.
Whoa, Aaron
So
Pryor,
who is Aaron Pryor? He was a boxer?
boxing.
Yeah, former junior lightweight champion of the world. He was one of the greatest. He beat Sugar Ray Leonard at the U.S. amateur trials, and then Sugar Ray Leonard went from junior welterweight to welterweight. He moved up a weight class to get away from Aaron Pryor, and then he ended up winning the Olympic Games at welterweight. And Aaron Pryor didn't make the team because a guy named Howard Davis beat him at the net.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.
I'm Jerry Trimble.
I'm Manny Sabrell.
And that's 2 World Champs.